It is time for another Extra Bases with Bristol and Booth. Jeremy Booth is here. Jason Bristol is here. We will be getting to the following topics, including the Astros. Another coach is left. Viewer mail or viewer comments. And then what's happening with Major League Baseball's for-profit youth initiative. But first, Jeremy Booth is here. Jeremy, your initial reaction to what is happening in the World Series with the Toronto Blue Jays, now one game away after taking Game 5. What do you think is going right for the Blue Jays and wrong for the Dodgers?
Execution, man. It's just that simple. It comes down to execution and versatility and role playing and doing the things that it takes to win a game instead of locking yourself in on an individual result. Now, I'm not saying the Dodgers are not trying to do that, but I'm saying there's a lot of big swings out there the Dodgers are taking, swinging and missing. And a guy like you Savage or a guy like Gausman, if they don't make a mistake, you're not going to get those guys, you know. And the hitting in the postseason has has borne that out. So when you're looking at a situation like you've got with the Jays and the Dodgers right now, you've got the Jays moving guys around. Bichette said last night on television, he said, next man up. I mean, that's what they're doing. They're playing the next man game, and they're lengthening their lineup and trying to get 9 guys up, up as much as they can, move it down the line, and whatever happens, happens. And that's winning baseball. That's what's going on.
Certainly from the Blue Jays perspective. And I would say from the Dodgers perspective as well, it seems like the stars in this series are actually producing. So it doesn't, to me, for the most part, seem like it's lacking the production of stars, but certainly it's the other guys that need to come around. And the Blue Jays are getting a little bit of something from a lot of different people, and give those guys credit. I mean, to go into LA and do what they did, including that marathon game, it's not easy. It's not easy, and they're doing it. And I think that this is something that people thought could happen a while ago. Remember when the Blue Jays were stacking Bichette and Guerrero and these guys, and finally it's come to fruition. But man, Savage, did you have him or have you seen him on the amateur space?
Yeah, I mean, I saw him. I went back and looked, and his name is in our database. That much I'll tell you. I'm not sure if I saw him somewhere when he was a freshman in high school. I'm not, I don't know, or as a sophomore, but the name's in the database, and there's a report. So we've seen him. What that means as far as having him in the higher level events that we did not have, but we've seen him, and so I can tell you this much. The Jays have the talent. What's impressive about what they're doing, I think I said Blue Jays in 7, didn't I, before the series started?
Think so.
Yeah. I mean, they have the talent and they go out and they have a lengthened lineup, and they have guys that can pitch in their roles, and they have guys that are staying healthy. And when a guy goes down, like Springer, went down with the oblique, I believe it was, then the guys come right back in and fill in. That becomes an impressive club. And the Dodgers have the same thing. They're just doing it differently, right? Dodgers have had a tough time in the postseason in many different years. Sometimes it's been analytics, sometimes it's been the actual tightening up the performance. Sometimes it's been a little touch arrogance, a little touch, of feeling like you're so much better than the guy across that you just got to go out there and perform. By the time they turn it up, it's a little bit late. What you see in the Blue Jays is a never quit, always hungry. Let's compete. We're going to win today. You can't scare me type of attitude. And the reason, and you saw that in no greater moment in sports than when an 18-run game or an 18-inning game ends with a home run, right? By Freddie Freeman, of course. Of course, it's Freddie Freeman. Ends with a home run to center field. And the next day, when you think it's a knockout blow, the Blue Jays win. That's tough to do, man. That's pretty tough to do. You got to give it to them, and you have to give it to how they're going about it. The clubhouse, the staff. It's not just a good story; it's deserved. And right now, if I'm the Dodgers, I feel like I got punched in the mouth a little bit, and I got to go compete in ways I don't really want to in a stadium that I promise you, As much as I love where we live right here in Houston, Texas, and as much as I love my hometown of Los Angeles, but Toronto, you know how much I love Toronto. Toronto is going to lose its mind the next couple of nights. And the Dodgers will probably not have heard anything quite that loud in quite some time.
And I love Toronto too because I grew up in Syracuse, New York. At one time in the 80s, the AAA affiliate of the Toronto Blue Jays. So we saw Kelly Gruber and Tom Henke and Mark Eichhorn. I'm trying to think of some other names. Fred McGriff, obviously. How could I forget Fred McGriff? They all came through MacArthur Stadium International League when I was a kid there. It's interesting, though, Jeremy. We did a whole podcast about Vladimir Guerrero batting third, and then Springer goes out of the lineup. And what do? They move Vladdy Jr. to two, which even Dan Schulman had mentioned when Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was hitting second. He hadn't done it in a while because it was basically done around the middle of the season when they moved him to number three. But there's a guy that, doesn't seem to affect him one bit. Doesn't seem to affect him one bit. But because George Springer is hurt, they had to shuffle some things.
Well, was it David Schneider in the leadoff spot? Was that who was in the leadoff spot last night?
I believe
And,
so.
and so, hitting Guerrero behind a guy like Schneider makes sense. You want to make sure Schneider gets something to hit instead he gets nickeled and dined a little bit. And I'm not putting it down David Schneider, but he's not Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? When you have the long lineup that these guys do, the length in the lineup, when you have the interchangeable pieces, you can get away with that stuff. You can't get away with it if you don't have those parts. And it does. They're going to pitch to Vladimir Guerrero how they pitch to him. He's not a guy that needs protection, needs to hit further down the lineup. Although the run the Jays went on later in the year did correspond with the timing of
Correct.
making those adjustments and moving Guerrero down to three. So, right now it's just about locked in and perform. And Schneider, I think, led the game off with a home run, and then Guerrero was right behind him. And they're down, 2-0 with 3 pitches into the game. So if you're going to do that in the World Series, that I kind of get that. But they're also executing. They're picking the ball up. They're throwing strikes. They're stealing bases and running the bags well. They're winning challenges. They're winning challenges. You know how you know when you're going well? You're scoring runs. You're throwing strikes. You're playing airless baseball. You're playing long games against a superior athletic team, right? And you're winning challenges. I think you're good.
Guerrero, 415 batting average, a 1337 OPS in the postseason. Ohtani has an 1109 OPS. Mookie Betts hitting 234, 647 OPS. He was batting third in game 5. Interesting. I think because we're talking about the World Series, we should probably hit some of the viewer comments from 2 podcasts, 2 shows last week. Let's see. David like Bo, they both get to the pitcher. Kirk also. I don't know what that. Maybe Davis is like Bo, they both get to the pitcher. Kirk
David
also.
Schneider.
I think that. Oh wow! Look what has made an appearance. Someone said they won 94 games. We were dividing the season because of the point that Vladimir Guerrero moved into the number 3 hole.
What was their record? What was their record once he moved into the
Oh,
3 spot?
Jeremy, I'd have to go back. I don't
It's all
have it
right.
in
We'll come
front of
back
me.
to it later. The bottom line is when I saw this club early multiple times in
Yeah.
Houston and in Toronto, they were not a club that was a World Series team. They just weren't. They had the pieces and they could be good. I remember speaking to some people in that organization and saying, "What are we doing things this?" Just my opinion. Well, we're doing things this way, and I'm not saying it took hold, but they figured it out. That'll say that they figured it out and they adjusted stuff down a certain way, and the rest is history. That's why they got good baseball people over there. So that's great. But the run to the top in the World Series started with that move, or in that around that time.
Doritos Chili Heat says, I think Toronto fans will be in for a rude awakening after the Dodgers destroy their team in game 2. They are overestimating their ability to compete in the World Series and underestimating the Dodgers. What we are about to do. Do that over. 5-4. I think Toronto fans will be in for a rude awakening after the Dodgers destroy their team in I think Toronto fans will be in for a rude awakening after the Dodgers destroy their team in Game 2. They are overestimating their ability to compete in the World Series and underestimating the Dodgers. What we are about to do in Game 2 will destroy any hope that the Blue Jays have and witness the greatest performance that the world has ever seen in the history of the sport. Go Dodgers.
You got to admire the guy for being supportive, you know? Um, I kind of like the handle. It's an interesting handle you got going there, but as this, people are so fond of saying in X update. So, I mean, look, Blue Jays are a good team, man. No one says the Dodgers aren't superior athletically. They are, but they're not winning baseball games right now because the Blue Jays are playing the better brand of baseball. It's not about who the best athletic team is overall. It's not it. Who wins in the postseason is who's playing the best baseball and using their personnel the best. It's a lot of things that have to go right to do that, and the Blue Jays are doing it better than the Dodgers.
Also from Extra Bases, Astros shake-up coaching staff. Giants roll the dice on Tony Vitello. Christopher Allen, 4845, says, Booth, your take sucks. Over 11 minutes of rambling on about nothing. Let me get you, we should get your
Hold on.
reaction here.
Hold on.
Yes.
Thank you for listening. We appreciate your viewership, and God, bless your heart.
Booth, your take sucks. Over 11 minutes of rambling on about nothing. I hope this hire is a huge success and opens minds in the future and more college managers get this chance. It gets old seeing the same recycled hacks. If it doesn't work, then so be it. It didn't work with Bob Melvin, and he had a ton of experience. That is from Christopher Allen, 4845, and someone gave it a thumbs up.
All right, so let me say it this way. It didn't work with Melvin. You're correct. The Giants have to pick a direction. This is what they've picked. And they're not college managers, they're college coaches. Okay? They're college head coaches. Each college team has a baseball manager in some capacity, baseball operations. It's a manager. Okay? That's not a manager. Managers are in professional baseball. So now that we've cleared that part up, thank you for listening. I appreciate your viewership and bless your heart.
For 11 minutes.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
it's
11
good.
minutes that they're never going to get back. They could have been spending 11 minutes doing something else.
Well, you know how it goes. If you don't like what I do, but you still watch what I do, you're still a fan.
Still a fan.
So appreciate it. Thank you.
The other items on the docket for today, I'm a bit surprised at some of the coverage of this that Bill Murphy, Astros pitching coach, is leaving to go to Pittsburgh as the Pirates' new pitching coach. It's reportedly at this point, it's not official as far as I know. Murphy's been or was with the Astros organization for the past decade. He was elevated to one of Houston's two major league pitching coaches after the 21 season. I'm a bit surprised that there's this thing of, oh my gosh, the Astros are getting rid of coaches and this and that, and this is the latest one to leave. And to me, this just screams one word: promotion, right? Because he's going to be, I assume, the main pitching coach, because in Houston, who was the face of the pitching staff here? It was Josh Miller. But that's just what I see from my perspective. I could be wrong, but certainly Josh Miller was more of the leading face of what was happening here in Houston. So I look at it as, hey, great move for Bill Murphy. It appears as though it's a promotion. That's how I take it. But I'm going to ask you, is that how you take it? Since certainly you've been at these levels a lot longer or intimately involved more than I ever have.
I think that any coverage of a guy taking a job somewhere else that isn't just simply about he took a job somewhere else is a waste of time. For me, it doesn't. I don't understand why we would go beyond that and why we'd have any kind of issue or non-issue with it. It's hey, Bill Murphy is leaving the Houston organization and he's joining the Pittsburgh organization in this capacity. Next, like what coaches and players change all the time. I don't understand why that's bigger news than Bill Murphy is leaving the Houston Astros organization, and he's joining the Pittsburgh Pirates organization, reportedly, in this capacity. Check box, next story. How's that?
Works for me.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get
Works for
it.
me.
Well,
The
we
others,
like to hold on, Jay. We like to yell at things, right? I mean, we like to yell at
well,
things.
I don't like to yell at things.
Well,
I'm not.
clouds, rants, big boxes. We like to yell at stuff. We like to talk about. I don't know. Um, I don't know. There's a thing on X called Old Takes Exposed, right? Old Takes
Hmm.
Exposed. I think I'm gonna start like taking pictures of some of this stuff that comes up. And like I'm just gonna go ahead and hit it with that stuff. I don't know. I think that we really do a bad job as a community. It must have been a slow news day. Let's put it that way. Shouldn't be worried about Bill Murphy or anything.
The story, which dropped on Thursday, October 30th, courtesy of ESPN, that the Major League Baseball Players Association Youth Baseball Company is under a federal investigation for suspiciously spending millions of dollars. Of course, the Players Association, led by Tony Clark, has issued a statement. Um, it A former finance official alleges that Clark approved six-figure payments to Players Way, a company which another ex-official labeled as a quote total waste of money. And I'm trying to find the actual statement from Tony Clark. And Tony Clark, obviously, former major leaguer, has been in the leading the Players Association now for, gosh, how many years, Jeremy?
A long time.
A long time. The complaint accuses MLBPA executive director Tony Clark of self-dealing, misuse of resources, and abuse of power at the union. It also alleges nepotism in his dealings with Players Way, which he helped launch with lofty aspirations to transform baseball across youth baseball across America. At the time of the complaint, the MLBPA has denied all allegations as entirely without merit. So, Tony Clark's statement from its creation has been clear to empower tomorrow's generation of players. Any suggestion that Players Way has not been supported by our elected player representatives and broader membership is patently false. Players Way has been front and center at every annual meeting of the MLBPA Executive Board in recent memory. And I guess one of the main things here is that it has spent millions of dollars while holding very few live events. So, since you are a major player in this space, Jeremy, I figured that you should at least have the floor on what you want to say, if anything, about what was released or reported, I should say, on Thursday, October 30th.
Well, clearly I have a relationship with Tony
Yes, I've
and
seen it.
yep, and the people on that side. And I think that there's pieces of this that I can safely address, or I can address and feel safe about what I'm about to say, meaning I know that there is nothing that's going to come out of my mouth that I'm not 100% sure about. And so that's kind of when something like this happens, you got to stick to it. So let's start with intent. Okay. Um, Tony Clark has had a strong desire for quite some time to remake the travel baseball and youth baseball scene. He wants to make an impact. He does not like the way things have gone. He has been public about that. And that's genuine. That's real. I've had Tony. Tony has appeared at different events that we've had just to take it in and to visit. Um, and the Players Way is an initiative that first was started about or thought about years ago, and I mean years ago, 6, 7 years ago. Was the first time I'd heard of it, and it had something to do with online coaching and videos and all kinds of things that players could access, young players could access to get better. And it turned into camps, and it was designed for youth. It wasn't necessarily designed for showcase baseball. It was designed for youth. Player development camps. Now, we live in an age where most families and parents in particular are chasing the ring at 9 years old for whatever tournament they're playing in, and they're not really thinking about development. And so it's a major shift in the industry that has to happen. I will note that the majority of players that actually make it, like really make it, are not doing that. They're focused on development first, and they're working through systems, and they're aligning in the right space and right people. Tony's goal, I believe, was to make an impact across all avenues of that. It wasn't trying to eliminate anybody. It was, I want to improve the game. I want to improve the quality of the game. I want to give something back to players. That was his goal. And I feel comfortable saying that for Chris Capuano and some of the other people that I know firsthand that I've had these conversations with about the player's way. Um, with that said, whatever business practices they went into, I have no knowledge of. And what I can tell you is that for sure, Tony is extremely protective of the player's interests. He always has been. He's extremely protective of what goes on that side as far as how to execute what's best for them. I do not believe in, and I'm gonna take Chris Capuano out of this because I love Cap. I do. Guy's been great to me, and he's good. We've always been, transparent with each other. And I'm gonna take Cap out when I say this. Tony's had some pretty bad advice. I mean, like amazingly bad advice around him, certainly when it comes to this space. And it's not his intent, and it's not his effort, and it's not his desire, and it's not what Cap does or where Cap's sweet spot is. And they keep it all running together pretty good. But I can say on this is not. He's had some amazingly bad advice, and some people there in the past who, um, and maybe still there now, who have completely misguided it for the wrong reasons. Now, you put enough pressure on the wrong person, and there's something that person has to sell or say, or ways that he can, maybe he's disgruntled, and he's going to come out and say something that's going to go ahead and poke your bear a little bit. I don't have any knowledge if that's happened or not. What I do know is what the man's intent was. And so um, when it comes to the people around him in the player's way was not something they rushed to implement. It was something that did a ton of research and organization and data building and database. At least this is what was represented to me: and database building and trying to find different ways to do it. And Chris Iannetta got involved, and some other people got involved in that in the player's way to execute it for kids. And they ran very few camps. Some of the people they've worked with, some, not all, and there are a couple people I don't, this doesn't apply to, but are suspect as well. And the things that they do are not necessarily above board. And, if the PA decide to get involved with them in this space, and only this space is what I'm talking about, then that's now something they got to deal with, right? But when it comes to what the intention was, when it comes to why these things were happening, what the goal was, yeah, they've only run a few events because it's a crowded space. Not everybody can come in like I did and kick doors down and say, I'm going to do this no matter what. Like that's not just that's not what happened. The PA had other things in place. They in the time that this player's way was just getting off the ground, there were other things that were going on, like the minor leaguers union. There was a new CBA to be ratified. There's another one coming up. There's all kinds of international drafts, all kinds of things that they were dealing with. Scandals. They got players get involved in gambling now. There's a lot of stuff the association's got to deal with, and the staff on the players' wayside. If there's something that was done in a way that was out of line, it wasn't done because anybody was trying to hide anything, in my view of what I know that they're about. I'll also say this part, and this part I think is really, really frustrating to me to read. In Jeff Passan's article, and I apologize to Jeff, who I see everywhere. I butcher your name constantly, man. Passan. Anyway, it's Passan.
You were fine. What do you mean? You're fine now. You
Yeah,
got
but
it
I'm
now.
not gonna lie. I like Jeff a lot. Jeff's great to me too. Bottom line is it's passing. And as we move back to as I move back into what I was talking about with Tony, there was a piece in Passan's article that talked about Tony getting his daughter's a job somewhere else using his influence. Okay, are we like gonna act like that's some kind of an issue that somebody who had a connection got his daughter a job out at a different union? We gonna That's a problem because like this happens all over America. It happens everywhere. You want proof? Look at the White House. That's not a political statement. Look at the White House. Jared Kushner was his son-in-law, worked in the White House. You have Eric Trump and all those other people doing different businesses that their father created. My father was a sports agent, introduced me to baseball. I had some doors open for me there. Like it happens. That's part of what it is when you're doing this. So I think that's probably the part of that where I look at it and go, You mean we're going to get mad at a guy for using some ability that he's and connections that he's got to get his daughter a gig? I don't know about that one. She still has to earn her way once she's over there. That's it.
Sometimes I wonder though if people truly consider the optics of things, because it certainly opens the door for a lot of speculation that, and I understand it because it happens in all different industries, including this very one. It happens everywhere, but I guess sometimes I wonder if people truly think of the optics and what it could mean in the bigger picture, meaning this could put me could hurt my credibility by doing something like this. And I'm not saying that that is the in that that takes is a part of this particular situation, but I do sometimes wonder if people truly think about the optics of the when people would look at this a situation like this from a 10,000-foot view.
Well, let me give you an example of something that you're not aware. You might be aware. The general public isn't going to connect the dots here. Okay, the Seattle Mariners owner is a guy named John Stanton. When I was over in Seattle, John Stanton was a minority owner. He had a son named Chris. Chris was an intern working for us in the draft room, running around doing stuff, all kinds of things in the front office, but he was an intern. Chris is now like VP of player personnel. Okay. His dad's the owner of the team. Chris got a job with the club, worked his way up. Nobody said a word about it. Whether he's good, bad, or otherwise does not matter. The optics of that was Chris was only hired because his dad was a part owner. And then Chris had to go make his own way. But you don't hear anybody complaining
Yeah, I
about
get
that.
I get that one because it's not like he started out as the team president.
Right.
So
So
I
we're
get that one. I get
right.
that one.
And so, you look at the Angelos's young brothers, the brothers who was it Peter? Peter was the owner, right? And the Angelos
John
brother.
Angelos, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you look at the two kids that he had that Peter had, and they ran the team above anything else, baseball operations, finance, business. They were plugged in immediately at the highest possible level that they could get. And then when Peter passed away, they sold the club, but they still had those jobs that they would not have had if the dad not owned the team. No one said a word. Okay, here in Houston, you have Jim Crane, the kid that was allegedly looking in the Red Sox dugout. Remember that years
Mm-hmm.
ago? Okay,
Yep.
he's taken care of by Jim. He's riding team jets. He's sitting in the front office. He has a job, and no one knows what he does. But he's a buddy of a buddy, and he's part. It happens everywhere. Like, let's not beat up Tony Clark because he got his daughter, helped get his daughter a job at a different union. It wasn't like it was him, it was a different union. And to that point, when he did have somebody one of his daughters work at the PA, it raised those type of concerns at the MLBPA. And 5 months later, she was gone. She also made, according to Jeff Passan's story, about a little over 13 grand in 5 months. So it's not like she was making a ton of money. She was in there working and having a job and having to work her way through. And her dad gave her a start because he probably had a need and an opening. And then the minute it looked like it was going to cause some problems, he said, "You know what? I get it. You got to go." So we're going to get mad at this guy who really, in his heart and soul, and it doesn't matter what has happened on the business side. I'm not getting paid by the PA. I'm not. It's nothing that I'm not saying this for any other reason than I believe it. Um, but if they broke the law or they broke some rules in there, that's for the people around them who advised them. Tony's got to deal with it, just the way it is. But it wasn't for trying to defraud anybody. And it sure as heck wasn't for trying to defraud kids or some kind of silo. They actually tried to do this. I just think Tony kept, every time he tried to move forward with something, matter of fact, I know it's for a fact in a couple of cases. Every time Tony tried to move forward with something, he had people around him told him not to do it and to hit the pause button and delayed him by a year. Now, until you're on that side and you're not listening to him, you don't know that. So we're gonna have to ease back on Tony a little bit. I'm not gonna name names or get in places beyond that, but TC's been in battle quite a bit. Yes, I call him TC because I consider the guy a friend. And when it comes to what's gone on, it's terrible look, it's terrible optics and stuff they have to answer for. It just sounds like it's a bad time over there. But the intent was not to defraud anybody, and that's the bottom line.
And just for the record, that Astros employee, we don't know what he does or what he doesn't do, but I do know that he does have a title in the business office because I'm looking right at it. So I'm just letting you know. I'm letting the people know that this person does indeed have a title and is in the outside of baseball ops. He does have a title and he is working for the Astros. So um, There you go.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for another Extra Bases. Thank you for weighing in with your comments, good, bad. There were no indifferent. So good or bad, let us know what you're thinking, and we will see how this World Series goes, I imagine.
Is Kevin Gausman pitching? And Kevin Gausman's pitching Game 6, right?
Yep. I think so.
Once upon a time, as a scout with the Seattle Mariners, as a cross-checker, I may have stood on a table or a seat in the stadium or the stadium itself wanting to draft this guy. I put my report online last time he pitched, and he's one of the most fun competitors I've ever had a chance to watch. Reminding me of Kevin Brown back then. The stuff he did at LSU, night in and night out on Friday, I could never, because there were so many people going in. I saw so much of Kevin Gausman as far as what he did, that the more you saw him, the more you liked him, and the more you wanted to see him compete. I had people tell me that, he didn't have what I said he had in terms of breaking ball, wasn't in there. And I get it. That's all they saw, because by the time they saw him, he wasn't showing that stuff. But it was in there. To see him come back all this amount later, that was 2012, all this time later, 13 years later, to take the ball in Game 6, have a chance to win the World Series for a great city like Toronto and the Blue Jays, as well as this in particular kid, who's not a kid anymore,
34 years old.
Yeah, he's not a kid. Is a full circle moment for me, even though I had nothing to do with drafting him. We didn't get him. The scout that did draft him was with the Orioles, and I want to say it was David Jennings, and he did a hell of a job on Gausman, and so good for him too with what comes out tomorrow.
So again, we're recording this on Thursday night, maybe posted on Friday. So Gausman would pitch tonight, Game 6. 34-year-old had 6 2/3 of 3-run ball, struck out 6 in his in the Game 2 game. But there you have it. Once again, everybody, let us know what you're thinking, and we'll get to them eventually. For Jeremy, I'm Jason. Thanks for watching another episode of Extra Bases.